The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the sprawling estate known as Hawthorne Manor. Once a symbol of opulence, the mansion now stood shrouded in the embrace of twilight, its cracked windows reflecting the fading light like the hollow eyes of a ghost. The wind whispered through the trees, rustling the leaves as if sharing long-held secrets. A chilling atmosphere hung in the air, thick with the essence of forgotten stories. The remnants of vibrant gardens were now overrun with weeds, and the once grand pathway was a tangled mess of crumbling stone and wild grass, leading to the imposing double doors that stood ajar, creaking softly as the breeze nudged them. Inside, the grand foyer echoed with silence, interrupted only by the distant sound of water dripping from an unseen leak. Dust floated lazily in the few beams of light that sneaked through the grimy glass, illuminating the remnants of a past life. Ornate chandeliers, dulled by layers of grime, hung precariously from the ceiling, their crystals dulled and their flickering glow long extinguished. The air was heavy with the scent of mildew and decay, an unmistakable testament to years of abandonment. Shadows danced along the walls, their movement almost hypnotic, leading the eye deeper into the heart of the mansion, toward the mysteries that lay hidden within. As one ventured further into the manor, a sense of unease began to settle. The once hustling rooms, filled with laughter and the clinking of fine china, now stood in oppressive stillness. Each room told a story, though no one remained to recount it. The parlor, with its moth-eaten upholstery, seemed to hold on to echoes of conversations long faded. An ancient piano sat in the corner, its keys yellowed and silent, aching for the touch of nimble fingers that would never return. Hawthorne Manor was built in the late 1800s, a testament to the aspirations of the wealthy Hawthorne family. Their rise to prominence was fueled by the booming industry of the time, and the mansion was a reflection of their success. But as the years passed and fortunes shifted, the grandeur of the estate began to crumble, much like the family's legacy. Whispers of tragedy and scandal followed the mansion like a dark cloud, and amid the echoes of its former glory, a palpable mystery lingered. As the twilight deepened into night, the atmosphere thickened with an unsettling energy. The front door creaked wider, as if inviting brave souls to uncover its secrets. The stories of the Hawthorne family were mired in intrigue, rumors of hidden treasures, familial betrayals, and unresolved tragedies. Why had such wealth and prominence been reduced to this? The answer remained locked within the walls of the manor, waiting for someone daring enough to confront its haunting past. A rustle in the corner of the room snapped the stillness, drawing attention. A flicker of movement caught the eye, a silhouette appearing momentarily before vanishing into the shadows. Could it have been merely a trick of the light, or was it a remnant of the past, lingering within the confines of its former home? The heart raced at the thought. What else might be lurking in the corners, waiting to be revealed? As the last rays of sunlight disappeared and darkness enveloped the manor, a low moan echoed through the halls. It reverberated like the cries of the long gone, a reminder that the past was still very much alive. The cold breeze swept through the cracked walls, as if the house itself was exhaling after years of holding its breath. The atmosphere became thick with anticipation, the kind that tingles at the back of the neck, urging caution while simultaneously beckoning one to explore deeper. Outside, the townsfolk of Eldridge whispered tales of the Hawthorne Manor. They spoke of strange occurrences and unexplained phenomena, each story more chilling than the last. Some claimed to have seen figures wandering the grounds at night, their outlines illuminated by the pale moonlight. Others reported hearing faint piano melodies drifting from the open windows, as if the spirits within were yearning to be heard once more. Yet, despite the fear that gripped their hearts, a morbid curiosity fueled their imagination. What lay inside the mansion? What stories awaited those brave enough to enter? As night fully claimed the sky, the moon rose high, casting an ethereal glow upon the crumbling facade of Hawthorne Manor. The shadows lengthened, and the wind howled a mournful tune. The manor stood not just as a relic of the past, but as a beacon for the curious and the bold. Each window revealed a glimpse of the unknown, the promise of secrets waiting to be unearthed. And yet, despite the eerie pull of the mansion, it remained a place avoided by many, a sanctuary for sorrow and regret. The townsfolk felt it in their bones. The air was thick with unease and palpable dread. They knew that within the confines of those walls lay the remnants of a family's ambition and a legacy stained by tragedy. What awaited within? What secrets lay buried beneath the dust and decay? For those daring enough to enter, the promise of discovery also came with a warning. Some doors were best left unopened. As the moonlight bathed the manor in a silver sheen, the time for revelation drew near. Brave souls would venture into the heart of darkness, seeking answers, but they would also face the shadows of the past. With a final gust of wind, the doors of Hawthorne Manor swung wider, inviting the curious to step inside. And for those who dared to cross the threshold, the mansion's secrets were waiting, eager to reveal the truth, if only they would listen. The story of Hawthorne Manor was just beginning, and what lay ahead would weave a tapestry of mystery, ambition, and perhaps a lingering curse that even time could not erase. Hawthorne Manor was built in the late 1800s, a testament to the aspirations of the wealthy Hawthorne family. Their rise to prominence was fueled by the booming Industrial Revolution, which cast a golden hue over many fortunes. The patriarch, Charles Hawthorne, was a shrewd businessman who made his name in textiles, establishing a factory that quickly became a cornerstone of the local economy. As his wealth grew, so did his ambitions. He envisioned a home that would embody not only his success, but also his desire for legacy, a grand estate that would stand as a beacon of his family's prominence. The construction of Hawthorne Manor began in 1885, with the finest architects and craftsmen of the era brought in to realize Charles's vision. Inspired by the opulent styles of Europe, the mansion featured intricate woodwork, towering ceilings adorned with plaster moldings, and expansive windows that welcomed sunlight into the many rooms. The grand staircase, sweeping and majestic, served as a focal point upon entering, inviting guests to explore the luxurious abode. Outside, the gardens were a marvel of design, featuring manicured hedges, fountains, and a variety of flowers that filled the air with their sweet fragrance. As the years passed, the Hawthorne family became synonymous with wealth and influence, hosting lavish parties that attracted the elite from all over. Dressed in elegant gowns and tailored suits, guests would dance in the grand ballroom, the sounds of laughter and music spilling out into the gardens. But beneath the surface of this gilded existence lay a complexity that would soon unravel the family's carefully woven tapestry of success. Charles Hawthorne was a man of ambition, but his relentless pursuit of wealth came at a cost. His marriage to Eleanor, a woman of grace and beauty, grew strained under the weight of expectations and the shadows of secrets. Eleanor, who had once been the light of his life, found herself feeling increasingly isolated within the walls of their grand prison. The whispers of the townsfolk, who marveled at the couple's opulence, yet speculated on their troubles, added to the strain. Despite the glamour, the Hawthorne household was not devoid of turmoil. Charles and Eleanor's children, Elizabeth, William, and Margaret, each faced their own struggles, from the pressure to maintain the family's reputation to the shadows cast by their father's domineering presence. Secrets brewed within the mansion's walls, tensions simmered beneath polished surfaces, contributing to an atmosphere thick with unspoken words and hidden ambitions. As the 20th century approached, the world outside the mansion began to change. The industrial landscape that had once supported the family's fortune started to shift, with new technologies rendering old businesses obsolete. The Hawthorne family's fortune, once a source of security, began to wane, as did their grip on the community's elite circle. The whispers of financial decline reached the ears of the townsfolk who once held the family in high regard. Rumors of financial ruin accompanied the diminishing garden parties and the quieter halls of Hawthorne Manor. The once bright laughter that echoed through the mansion grew fainter, replaced by an air of uncertainty and despair. But within the walls of the manor, it was not only the echoes of laughter that faded. The family faced a devastating tragedy that would forever alter the trajectory of their story. One fateful evening, during a winter storm, tragedy struck as Elizabeth, the eldest daughter, was involved in a car accident while returning home from a nearby event. The news shattered the family, sending shockwaves through the community. In the wake of Elizabeth's untimely death, grief enveloped the household like a thick fog. Her absence cast a long shadow over the family, intensifying the fractures that had already begun to form. Charles, once a figure of strength, became a shell of his former self, retreating into the depths of despair.
Eleanor, unable to cope con her grief, withdraw from the world, seeking solace in the memories of happier times. William, burdened by the expectations of carrying the family name, grew increasingly rebellious, distancing himself from the weight of his father's legacy. Margaret, the youngest, felt invisible amidst the turmoil, her cries for attention drowned out by the overwhelming sorrow that consumed her parents. As the years passed, the Hawthorns' fortune dwindled, leaving behind whispers of scandal and misfortune. The grand parties ceased, and the once vibrant gardens became overgrown as the family retreated further into their grief. The community that had once admired them began to view the mansion not as a symbol of wealth, but as a place marked by loss and despair. As the years passed, the Hawthorns' fortune dwindled, leaving behind whispers of scandal and misfortune. The grand parties ceased, and the once vibrant gardens became overgrown as the family retreated further into their grief. The community that had once admired them began to view the mansion not as a symbol of wealth, but as a place marked by loss and despair. It was during this time of decline that the mansion itself seemed to take on a life of its own. The creaking floorboards and the echoes of long-lost laughter became a haunting reminder of what once was. The shadows deepened within the hallways, and the rooms that had once been filled with light grew dark, as if mourning alongside the family. As the last of the Hawthorne family began to fade away, the mansion transformed into a ghostly relic of its former glory. With each passing year, the tales of the family became intertwined with the stories of the mansion itself. Local legends began to spread, tales of the spirits that roamed the halls and of the secrets that lay buried within the walls. This is where the story of Hawthorne Manor takes a turn into the realm of the unknown. While the family faced their downfall, the house itself became a character in its own right, whispering secrets of its past to those brave enough to step foot inside. The eerie atmosphere, coupled with the legacy of tragedy, left many wondering if the echoes of the Hawthorne family still lingered within its walls. As we reflect on the history of Hawthorne Manor, one can't help but feel the weight of the stories held within its walls. The golden era of wealth and glamour stands in stark contrast to the shadows that now envelop it. What truly happened behind those closed doors? Was it merely the passage of time that decayed the family fortune, or was there something darker lurking in the depths of their legacy? Before we delve deeper into the haunting tales of abandonment and the mysteries that lie within, we invite you to join us on this journey.
Subscribe to our channel and share where you're listening from in the comments below. Your connection to this story matters, and it helps us understand how far our narrative reaches. As the sun sets on Hawthorne Manor, the answers to its mysteries remain cloaked in shadows, waiting for those daring enough to seek the truth hidden within its heart. The Hawthorne family, once a beacon of affluence and sophistication, inhabited the mansion for generations, their lives interwoven with the fabric of the estate. They were known for their lavish parties and grand gatherings, where the elite of society would flock to celebrate under the gilded ceilings and ornate chandeliers. However, beneath this facade of wealth and privilege lay the complexities of human nature, familial tensions, unspoken secrets, and ambitions that could lead to both greatness and ruin. At the heart of the Hawthorne family was Eleanor Hawthorne, the matriarch, whose powerful presence commanded respect and admiration. With her striking beauty and sharp intellect, she was the heart of the mansion, the one who held the family together through trials and tribulations. Eleanor was known for her charitable endeavors, often hosting grand events to raise funds for the less fortunate. Yet, behind her benevolent exterior, there simmered a fierce ambition and a desire for social dominance that sometimes led her to make decisions that would haunt her family for years. Eleanor's husband, Charles Hawthorne, was a visionary in the realm of business, his keen mind driving the family's wealth. He was a man of vision, but also one of contradictions. While he was beloved by the townsfolk for his generosity towards the community, he was often lost in his pursuits, leaving Eleanor to manage the household and their 3 children, William, Margaret, and the youngest, Edward. The siblings grew up in the shadows of their parents, each struggling to carve out their own identities amidst the expectations placed upon them. William, the eldest, was groomed to take over the family business. He exuded confidence and charm, but beneath this exterior lay a simmering resentment towards his father, who often dismissed William's ideas in favor of his own. The pressure to succeed loomed large, and William felt trapped, torn between familial loyalty and his desire for autonomy. His relationship with Margaret, who was fiercely independent and artistic, was complicated by the expectations placed on both of them.
They shared a bond forged in childhood, but became strained as adulthood approached. Margaret sought solace in her art, creating stunning pieces that conveyed her emotions but often went unappreciated in the grand halls of Hawthorne Manor. Edward, the youngest and most sensitive of the siblings, struggled to find his place amidst the ambition and rivalry that surrounded him. He was often overlooked, his artistic talents mocked by his father, who saw no value in pursuits that did not contribute to the family's legacy. Edward found refuge in the gardens of the estate, where he spent hours sketching and dreaming of a life beyond the confines of the mansion. Little did he know, the very place that was both his sanctuary and prison held darker secrets, ones that would soon unravel the Hawthorne legacy. As the years passed, the family dynamics grew increasingly fraught. Eleanor's endless pursuit of social standing clashed with Charles's ambition, leading to heated arguments that echoed through the mansion's vast corridors. The children watched as their parents' love turned to resentment, a slow burn of discontent that permeated the walls of Hawthorne Manor. The once vibrant household became a battleground of silence, each family member retreating into their own world, haunted by unfulfilled dreams and a longing for connection. Despite the tension, the family maintained the facade of the perfect life. They held extravagant soirees filled with laughter and music, but beneath the surface a storm brewed. Whispers of scandal began to spread, rumors of infidelity and betrayal that seeped into the gatherings like an insidious fog. Guests would smile politely, but behind their eyes lurked curiosity tinged with malice, feeding off the drama that unfolded behind closed doors. The turning point came one fateful evening during a lavish charity gala hosted by Eleanor. The grand ballroom, adorned with flowers and glittering decorations, was alive with music and laughter, the air thick with anticipation. But as the evening progressed, tensions escalated. An unexpected guest arrived, a former business partner of Charles, whose fall from grace was riddled with scandal. The atmosphere shifted, the facade of joy cracking under the weight of unspoken truths. As the night wore on, the family found themselves at the center of a storm. During a toast, Charles, fueled by alcohol and resentment, publicly confronted his former partner, unleashing years of pent-up anger.
The scene played out like an ill-fated drama, the guests caught between fascination and horror. Eleanor's face pale, her carefully curated world teetering on the brink of collapse. In the aftermath of that disastrous evening, the family's once solid foundation began to crumble. The fallout was swift and brutal. Newspapers reported the scandal, igniting a firestorm of rumors that swiftly engulfed the Hawthorne name. Tensions escalated within the family, distrust seeping into every interaction. William and Margaret found themselves at odds, each blaming the other for the family's misfortunes. As secrets unraveled, a sense of paranoia took root within Hawthorne Manor. Shadows lurked in corners, whispers filled the rooms, and the once vibrant home felt like a mausoleum, echoing with the ghosts of dreams unfulfilled. One stormy night, as lightning illuminated the hallways, Edward stumbled upon a hidden letter in a dusty attic, one that revealed shocking truths about his parents' past. The implications of what he found would change everything he thought he knew about his family. The atmosphere grew heavy, a palpable tension hanging in the air like a storm cloud ready to burst. The mansion, once a symbol of wealth and privilege, had transformed into a stage for betrayal and tragedy. As relationships frayed and tempers flared, the Hawthorne family was left to confront the true cost of their ambition. What began as an elegant dream had morphed into a nightmarish reality, one that would haunt them long after the last guest departed from their home. And as the shadows deepened within the walls of Hawthorne Manor, whispers of what lay ahead began to emerge, hinting at a reckoning that no one could escape. The air hung heavy with an unsettling stillness, a stark contrast to the vibrant life that once filled Hawthorne Manor. In the years following the family's golden era, shadows crept into the corners of the grand estate, whispering tales of tragedy and despair. The decline of the Hawthorne family began subtly, like a crack that slowly spreads across a beautiful porcelain vase. It all started with a devastating accident that would shatter the family's world. One fateful evening, as a storm raged outside, the county gathered for a gala at the manor, a last-ditch effort to showcase the family's enduring status. Laughter filled the air, mingling with the clinking of glasses and the soft strains of a string quartet. But behind the facade of celebration, tension simmered. Charles, in his relentless pursuit of perfection, was particularly fraught. He had received word of potential financial troubles, and the specter of rumors began to loom over him, threatening to undermine the very foundation of the family's legacy. As the evening wore on, a sense of foreboding hung like a heavy fog, creeping into the minds of the attendees. With the storm's fury raging outside, a sudden power outage plunged the ballroom into darkness. The laughter faded, replaced by an audible gasp that rippled through the crowd. In the chaos, a piercing scream shattered the silence, drawing everyone's attention to the staircase. Eleanor Hawthorne, adorned in a gown of deep burgundy satin, had lost her footing amidst the confusion and fallen from the grand staircase. The scene that unfolded was harrowing. Guests rushed to her side as the flickering candlelight revealed her motionless form. The once vibrant woman, who had been the heart of the household, lay still, her dreams extinguished in an instant. The atmosphere changed rapidly from one of celebration to one of shock and horror. Paramedics were called, but it was already too late. The whispers began almost immediately, fueled by grief and disbelief. Was it an accident, or was there something more sinister at play? The days that followed were shrouded in a deep sense of mourning. Charles, who had always presented an image of stoic resolve, was visibly shattered. The loss of Eleanor, his partner and confidant, left a gaping void in his life. Friends turned to family, offering condolences, but their pity felt hollow. Behind closed doors, the mansion echoed with silence, the once bustling halls now a testament to grief.
In the wake of this tragedy, the family's financial troubles became more pronounced. Investors began to withdraw, rumors of mismanagement spread through the community like wildfire, and the opulence of Hawthorne Manor began to tarnish. Charles, unable to cope with both his loss and the mounting pressure, withdrew further into himself. The vibrant parties that had once characterized their lives were replaced by an oppressive silence. With Eleanor gone, the children, Margaret and William, felt the weight of family expectations shift in an alarming way. Margaret, once the darling of the social scene, now found herself increasingly isolated, struggling to maintain her identity amidst the encroaching shadows of family legacy.
William, the younger brother, felt the sting of unfulfilled expectations. He had hoped to step into a leadership role, but his father's grief stifled any opportunity for him to assert himself. Instead of unity, their shared loss drove a wedge between them, fracturing the very fabric of their family. The once grand estate began to reflect their inner turmoil. The gardens, once meticulously kept, grew wild. Weeds overtook the flower beds, and the fountains, once bubbling with cheerful water, stood stagnant, collecting leaves and debris. Within the mansion, echoes of laughter were replaced by the creaking of floorboards and the rustle of curtains caught in the wind. The walls seemed to absorb the family's sorrow, and the once welcoming residence took on an air of decay and despair. As time passed, the memories of Eleanor lingered in the halls. Guests reported glimpses of her spirit, a fleeting figure in a burgundy dress, wandering through the ballroom, searching for something just beyond reach. To the townsfolk, the tales became a source of intrigue, a blend of tragedy and the supernatural that only added to the mansion's growing reputation. Some whispered that Eleanor's spirit was unable to find peace, trapped in the very home that had once been a sanctuary. Charles's mental state deteriorated further, and whispers of madness began to circulate. He became more reclusive, seen less frequently in town as he buried himself in his work, desperately trying to salvage what remained of his empire. The walls of Hawthorne Manor, once a bastion of joy and celebration, now bore witness to the slow disintegration of a legacy that had taken generations to build. It wasn't long before a scandal erupted, fueled by desperation and fear. Reports of financial mismanagement and embezzlement began to surface, accusing Charles of manipulating funds to maintain the facade of wealth. The community that had once revered the Hawthornes now turned their backs on them. Friends became strangers, and the whispers of betrayal echoed through the once gilded halls. The final blow came when a fire broke out in the east wing of the manor. It was a cold, moonless night when the flames first flickered to life, licking at the wooden beams with ravenous hunger. It consumed everything in its path, leaving the family with nothing but ashes and remnants of their past. In the aftermath of the fire, the Hawthorne family was left standing amidst the rubble of their dreams, their once grand home reduced to a smoldering shell. The townspeople watched from a distance, a mixture of curiosity and relief swirling among them. There was a sense of closure, yet the place that had once been a symbol of prosperity now stood as a haunting reminder of fragility and loss. The loss of Eleanor, the family's subsequent decline, and the tragic fire marked the point of no return for the Hawthornes. As the mansion fell into disrepair, the once bustling estate became a ghost of its former self, a silent witness to the rise and fall of a family that had aimed for greatness yet was ultimately consumed by tragedy. As the dust settled, the townspeople pondered the future of Hawthorne Manor, unaware that the darkest chapters of its history were yet to be unveiled. What remained of the family legacy was a cautionary tale, echoing through time, waiting for someone to uncover the mysteries and tragedies that lay hidden within the crumbling walls. The mansion, once a vibrant center of social life, increasingly bore the marks of neglect and disarray. As the years rolled by, whispers of supernatural occurrences surrounded it, growing louder with each passing season. Those who dared to approach the estate reported haunting echoes of laughter that seemed to linger long after the guests had departed. The shadows of the past wrapped themselves around the dusty rooms, and the air, thick with a musty scent, held on to secrets better left undiscovered. Local legends began to sprout like weeds in the overgrown garden, tales of apparitions that roamed the corridors at night. Some claimed to have seen the ghostly figure of Eleanor Hawthorne, her elegant gown flowing as she wandered through the grand ballroom, searching for her lost family. Others spoke of Charles, his strong presence still felt, a watchful guardian over his once thriving domain. The stories wove a tapestry of intrigue, captivating the imaginations of even the most skeptical townsfolk. During a particularly stormy night, a group of curious teenagers decided to explore the mansion, drawn by the allure of the supernatural. They crept through the rusted gates, their flashlights flickering as they made their way up the cracked path overgrown with weeds. A cold wind whispered through the trees, sending shivers down their spines, but their excitement propelled them forward.
As they stepped inside, the heavy air seemed to settle around them like a thick fog. The vast foyer, once adorned with opulent decor, now lay in disarray. Cobwebs hung from the chandeliers like tattered lace, and dust motes danced in the beams of light, creating an ethereal glow. The teenagers exchanged nervous glances, their laughter fading into hushed whispers as they ventured deeper into the heart of the mansion. Suddenly, a loud creak echoed through the hallway, causing them to jump. They froze, their hearts pounding. Had they truly come to investigate, or were they merely chasing a thrill? A sense of dread crawled up their spines, but curiosity pushed them onward. They gathered their courage and continued, their footsteps reverberating in the silence, a stark reminder of the mansion's abandonment. As they entered the grand ballroom, a chilling sensation enveloped them. The once lavish space now looked like a ghost of its former self, faded wallpaper peeling away to reveal the skeleton of the wall beneath. The remnants of a grand piano sat in the corner, its keys yellowed with age, silent but filled with stories waiting to be uncovered. The teenagers marveled at the beauty that had been lost, their imaginations ignited by the stories that echoed within these walls. But as they wandered further, strange phenomena began to unfold. Shadows flitted at the edges of their vision, darting away before they could focus. Whispers drifted through the air, soft and unintelligible, like a forgotten melody. The group huddled together, their excitement tinged with fear as they began to realize they were not alone. In the corner of the room, an ornate mirror stood, its surface covered in layers of dust. One of the teenagers, drawn to it, reached out a hand to wipe it clean. As the dust settled, a sudden chill swept through the room, causing the others to gasp. The mirror revealed not just their reflections, but a fleeting image of a woman in a flowing gown, her face obscured by shadows. The vision vanished as quickly as it appeared, leaving the teenagers breathless and questioning their sanity. They retreated from the mirror, their hearts racing. Was it merely a trick of the light, or had they encountered the spirit of Eleanor? The group debated, their voices rising in excited whispers. They knew the stories, the legends that surrounded the Hawthorne family, and the tragic fate that had befallen them.
The connection between the mansion and its past was undeniable, and they felt the weight of history pressing down upon them. The mood shifted as they moved toward the kitchen, where remnants of a once bustling household lingered. The air was thick with the aroma of mildew, yet there was something almost comforting about it, a reminder of warmth that once filled the home. A large table sat at the center, the legs sturdy but the surface marred by stains and scratches. The teenagers exchanged stories of the Hawthornes, imagining the family gathered around that very table for dinner, their laughter and arguments echoing through time. But as they reminisced, a loud crash erupted from the pantry, sending them all jumping back. Fear clawed at their throats, and for a moment they hesitated, torn between their curiosity and the instinct to flee. Gathering their resolve, they approached the pantry, hearts racing with anticipation. What could possibly be causing such a disturbance? To their surprise, they found the source of the noise, A stack of old, dusty cans had toppled over, spilling their contents across the floor. But it wasn't the cans that captured their attention. As they turned to leave, they noticed a faded photograph pinned to the wall, a family portrait of the Hawthorns, smiling and vibrant. Yet there was something unsettling about it. The eyes seemed to follow them, a haunting reminder of the lives once lived within these walls. The atmosphere grew heavier, the weight of the mansion's sorrow palpable. Each corner echoed with the laughter of children long gone, the love stories that blossomed and faded, and the tragedies that had sealed the fate of the Hawthorne family. The teenagers felt an overwhelming sense of loss, as if they were intruding on a private grief that had lingered far too long. As they prepared to leave, a soft rustle caught their attention. They turned back, expecting to see nothing but shadows, yet the air seemed to shimmer with energy. It was as if the mansion itself urged them to stay a moment longer, to listen to the stories it had to tell. Each creak of the floorboards, each whisper of the wind through the broken windows tugged at their curiosity, igniting a desire to uncover the truth of the Hawthorne legacy. The night deepened, and with it, an unsettling silence enveloped the mansion. What had begun as a thrilling adventure morphed into something darker, a weighty realization that they were no longer just visitors, but part of the mansion's unending tale. They stepped back outside, the chill of the night settling around them, and as they glanced back at the looming structure, a flicker of light danced behind one of the windows. The mansion, with its secrets and sorrows, remained alive, its ghosts whispering into the night, beckoning for someone to listen. Behind them, the stories of the past echoed, urging each person to reflect on the layers of history that shaped the present. The mansion had become more than just a place. It was a vessel of memories, a sanctuary for the lost, and perhaps, just perhaps, it held the key to understanding the entwined fates of the Hawthorne family. As the group walked away, their hearts heavy with unanswered questions, a single thought lingered. Some mysteries are meant to be uncovered, while others are best left in the shadows. In the aftermath of that fateful night, the air around Hawthorne Manor thickened with an unshakable gloom. The festive lights that had illuminated the grand ballroom turned to shadows, and the once vibrant laughter of guests was replaced by hushed whispers of disbelief. Eleanor Hawthorne's tragic fall had stamped an indelible mark on the family, and the whispers soon morphed into dark rumors, weaving a narrative of despair that hung heavily over the estate. In the weeks following Eleanor's death, the atmosphere in the manor became suffocating. Charles Hawthorne, a man once celebrated for his charisma, now wore the weight of the world on his shoulders. He withdrew into a shell of his former self, spending hours in the dimly lit study, poring over financial papers that seemed to mock him. The vibrant gatherings that had once been a staple of the Hawthorne legacy were replaced by an oppressive silence. The walls, which had once echoed with joy, now stood witness to a family's unraveling. The days turned into months, and the once majestic halls of Hawthorne Manor became a stage for mounting tensions and unspoken grievances. Charles's relationship with his children, once filled with warmth and camaraderie, began to fray. Margaret, their eldest daughter, struggled to hold the family together, attempting to step into her mother's role with a mix of grace and desperation. Meanwhile, her younger brother Thomas fought against the rising tide of resentment, feeling overshadowed by his father's grief-driven decisions. As Charles sank deeper into despair, the specter of financial ruin loomed ever closer. The whispers about the family's failing fortunes grew louder, spilling from the lips of townsfolk who once revered the Hawthornes. In an effort to regain control, Charles began to sell off family heirlooms, each piece a slice of his legacy. The once grand ballroom, filled with precious artifacts and memories, echoed with emptiness. Each item sold was a reminder of what they had lost, and the family began to fracture under the pressure. It was during one particularly stormy night, reminiscent of that tragic evening, that tensions reached a breaking point.
A tempest raged outside, and the wind howled through the manor's creaking corridors, as if mirroring the turmoil within. Margaret and Thomas found themselves in the drawing room, an opulent space now dulled by the weight of grief. They faced each other, their arguments escalating like the storm outside. "You can't just let this happen, Thomas. We have to do something," Margaret exclaimed, her voice rising above the crack of thunder. "What can we do, Margaret? Father is lost. He doesn't see how dire things are. If we don't act now, we'll be left with nothing," Thomas replied, frustration etched on his face. Their heated discussion was abruptly interrupted as the power flickered and then went out, plunging the room into darkness. The only light came from the occasional flash of lightning, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The air felt charged with unease, and an unsettling silence enveloped them. "Did you hear that?" Margaret whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Before Thomas could respond, a loud crash echoed from the upper levels of the manor. Their hearts raced as they exchanged worried glances. The storm outside intensified, whipping the rain against the windows as they cautiously made their way up the grand staircase. "Stay close to me," Thomas urged, his voice barely above a whisper. As they ascended, the air grew colder, and an inexplicable feeling settled over them. The hallway leading to their mother's old room felt foreign, as if it were a place inhabited by memories that no longer belonged to them. The door creaked open, revealing the dusty space that had not been entered since Eleanor's death. They stepped inside, the floorboards groaning beneath their weight as if protesting their presence. In the dim light, they spotted something shimmering at the far end of the room. It was a small locket that had belonged to Eleanor, its silver glinting softly in the darkness. Margaret picked it up, feeling the cool metal against her palm, and suddenly she was flooded with memories of her mother, her laughter, her warmth, the way she could bring light into any room. Tears brimmed in her eyes as she clutched the locket, a tangible connection to the woman they had lost. Just then, a loud banging reverberated through the manor, startling them both. "What was that?" Thomas exclaimed, his eyes wide with fear. "I don't know," Margaret replied, her heart racing. "We should get out of here." As they turned to leave, the room seemed to shift around them. Shadows danced across the walls, and a low whisper echoed in the air, almost like a warning. "Get out, before it's too late." Panic surged through them, and they raced down the staircase, the haunting words lingering in their minds. The feeling of being watched pressed against their backs as they fled the room, the storm outside now a backdrop to the chaos brewing within the walls of Hawthorne Manor. In the days that followed, the siblings became increasingly aware of their surroundings. The once familiar spaces became repositories of unsettling secrets. Strange happenings unfolded. Objects moved when no one was watching. Whispers echoed in empty rooms, and cold drafts swept through the halls even on the calmest days. The manor, once a symbol of grandeur, transformed into a labyrinth of unease. Determined to confront their family's legacy, Margaret and Thomas began to investigate the history of Hawthorne Manor, hoping to understand the forces that seemed to plague their home. They uncovered details about the family's origins, the ambitions that had built the estate, and the tragedies that had left scars deep within its walls. But with each revelation, the sense of foreboding grew, as if the very foundation of the manor were crying out for recognition and resolution. In their quest, they stumbled upon old letters, diaries, and even photographs that revealed hidden truths about their parents, secrets that had been buried beneath layers of time and grief. The more they learned, the more they felt a connection to the past, a connection tinged with sorrow and urgency. As the storm clouds gathered once more over Hawthorne Manor, a chilling realization settled in the hearts of the siblings. They could no longer ignore the shadows that clung to their family legacy, and they knew they had to face whatever darkness lingered within the manor's walls. The echoes of the past were growing louder, urging them to confront their fears and uncover the truth that had long been shrouded in silence.
The teenagers stood frozen in the dim light of the foyer, the air thick with a sense of unease. A chill swept through the grand hall, whispering secrets they could not decipher. Their breaths came out in shallow gasps, and even the most confident among them felt the creeping dread settle in. The sudden creak had sounded like a door slowly swinging open, or perhaps the weight of a step taken on the old floorboards. Whatever it was, it held the weight of 1,000 stories that begged to be told. "Maybe we should go back," whispered Sarah, her voice barely above a breath, as her eyes darted toward the expansive staircase that spiraled into darkness. The others exchanged glances, each grappling with their own fear, the thrill of adventure now overshadowed by a primal instinct to flee. But curiosity is a powerful force, and one by one they nodded, a silent agreement to push forward. As they ventured deeper, the atmosphere grew thicker, as if the very walls were alive with memories. Paintings adorned the walls, their once vibrant colors faded to ghostly shades. Each canvas seemed to watch them with hollow eyes, capturing moments of joy now lost to time. The teenagers moved cautiously, the floorboards creaking under their weight, sounding like the distant echoes of laughter and music that had once filled the air. "Look at this!" shouted Jake, breaking the silence as he pointed to a door slightly ajar at the end of the hallway. Despite the lurking apprehension, the thrill of discovery ignited a spark in the group. They approached the door, which seemed to beckon them. As they pushed it open, a cloud of dust erupted into the air. The musty scent enveloped them, a reminder of the years of neglect that had settled into every corner of the mansion. Inside was a library, its shelves lined with books that appeared to have been untouched for decades. The air was saturated with the scent of old paper, mingling with the faint odor of mildew. Rich, dark wood framed the room, and despite its state of disarray, it held a certain elegance. A massive wooden desk sat in the center, papers strewn across its surface, hinting at unfinished thoughts and discarded dreams. The teenagers moved closer, their flashlights illuminating the titles that had once sparked joy in the minds of readers long gone. "Hey, check this out," whispered Lisa, holding up a tattered journal she had found beneath a layer of dust. Its leather cover was cracked and worn, but it held an air of mystery that drew them closer. As she opened it, the pages revealed elegant handwriting, chronicling the daily life of Eleanor Hawthorne. The entries were filled with intimate details about the family's joys and sorrows, their struggles and triumphs, giving the teenagers a glimpse into the life once lived within these walls. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the library, causing them all to jump. The door they had entered through slammed shut, trapping them in the room. Panic surged through the group, and they rushed to the door, pulling at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. "It's just the wind," Jake insisted, though the tremble in his voice betrayed his fear. They exchanged frantic glances, realizing they were not just exploring a forgotten mansion, but stepping into a web of history that clung to them like the dust that danced in the air. "Let's check the windows," Sarah suggested, her heart racing. They rushed to the tall, dusty panes, hoping to find a way out, but each one was sealed shut, the glass cold and unyielding. Outside, the storm raged on, rain lashing against the windows like a warning, the wind howling as if trying to communicate with them. It felt as though the mansion itself was alive, reacting to their intrusion with a fury that was both captivating and terrifying. With no way out, they returned to the desk, where the journal lay open, the pages fluttering slightly as a draft swept through the room. Lisa, still holding on to the last vestiges of calm, traced her fingers over the delicate script. "Listen to this," she said, reading aloud. "I fear for our safety. The whispers have grown louder, echoing through the halls at night. It feels as though the house knows our secrets. I can no longer distinguish between reality and the shadows that haunt me." The atmosphere shifted, the weight of Eleanor's words hanging heavily in the air.
The room had transformed from a place of exploration to a chamber of confessions, where the past bled into the present. Each of them could feel the tension mounting, the realization that they were not alone, pressing against their skin. As if conjured by their fear, a low moan reverberated through the walls, sending shivers down their spines. The sound felt alive, as though the mansion were alive, lamenting its long-lost inhabitants. "What was that?" whispered Jake, his bravado quickly evaporating. They huddled closer together, the shadows around them growing darker, more pronounced. "Maybe we should try to find another way out," Sarah suggested, her voice trembling. They turned back to the door, but just as they reached for the handle, it swung open abruptly, revealing the shadowy hallway beyond. The tension snapped, and they rushed through, propelled by fear and adrenaline. Each room they passed felt like a haunted portrait, whispering untold stories, holding their breath as the group moved through. They stumbled into a grand ballroom, illuminated only by the flickering light of their flashlights. The once grand space was now a tapestry of decay, but the echoes of laughter and music still lingered in the corners. A chandelier, now draped in cobwebs, hung precariously above, its crystals glinting like stars in the fragile light. Then, as if on cue, the laughter echoed once more, a haunting melody that tugged at their hearts. The teenagers spun around, wide-eyed, their breaths caught in their throats. For a moment, they could almost see it, the phantom figures twirling in a dance long lost to time, the vibrancy of life that had once filled this space. But before they could comprehend the beauty of the moment, the chill enveloped them again, the shadows thickening. A gust of wind howled through the ballroom, extinguishing their flashlights in an instant, plunging them into darkness. Panic surged anew as they fumbled for their phones, desperate to find light in the overwhelming blackness. In that suffocating moment, they understood the weight of the mansion's history, the lives intertwined within its walls, the tragedies that had unfolded, and the secrets that refused to fade. They were not just intruders, they were part of a story that had begun long before they had arrived, a tale wrapped in mystery and echoing through the halls. The air felt charged, electric, with a sense of expectancy, as if the house itself was waiting for them to uncover its hidden truths. What would they discover next? What would the shadows reveal in the depths of the abandoned mansion?
The questions hung in the air, tantalizing and terrifying, as the teenagers stood together in that moment, poised on the brink of an unknown adventure. The sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the once grand Hawthorne Manor, now a somber silhouette against the fading light. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, a reminder of the inevitable passage of time that had not been kind to the estate. Inside, the echoes of laughter were replaced by an eerie silence, punctuated only by the soft creaks of the old wooden floors and the occasional rustle of leaves outside, as if the house itself mourned the loss of its former glory. Margaret stood at the foot of the grand staircase, her heart heavy with the weight of responsibility that had been thrust upon her. The walls were adorned with portraits of her ancestors, their eyes seeming to follow her every move, silently judging the choices she had made since her mother's tragic fall. She felt a strange connection to those painted figures, as if they too had experienced the same despair that now draped over her family like a dark shroud. In this moment, she wasn't just the eldest daughter, she was the last bastion of hope for the Hawthorne lineage. As the days turned into weeks, the struggles of maintaining the estate became increasingly burdensome. The financial strain was evident. Bills piled high on the desk in her father's study, each one a reminder of the family's dwindling fortune. Charles had retreated further into his grief, drowned by memories of Eleanor and the life they had shared. Their home, once alive with joy and splendor, now felt like a tomb, preserving the echoes of a past that seemed to slip further away with every passing day. Margaret tried to engage her father, hoping to summon the strength that he had once possessed. She spoke of plans to renovate, to invite the townsfolk back for gatherings that would remind everyone of the joy the manor had once provided. However, each suggestion was met with a vacant stare, and Charles would retreat deeper into his melancholy, ignoring the flickers of hope she tried to ignite. Frustration gnawed at her, but beneath it lay a well of sorrow. Sorrow for her father, for the family, and for the home that seemed to mirror their decline. Thomas, still grappling with the shadow of his parents' expectations, often found solace in the gardens that surrounded the manor. Amidst the overgrown hedges and wilting flowers, he felt a fleeting sense of escape. However, the garden, too, bore the weight of neglect, much like their family. The once vibrant blooms were now faded, struggling to survive as the seasons changed. He spent hours there, wrestling with his own feelings of inadequacy and resentment towards his father's inability to see beyond his grief. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow across the sky, Thomas stumbled upon a hidden path within the overgrown garden. The path, obscured by tangled vines and brambles, seemed to beckon him forward. With each step, the sounds of the manor faded, replaced by a haunting stillness that both thrilled and terrified him. As he ventured deeper, a flicker of movement caught his eye, and he hesitated, his heart racing. There, partially obscured by the twisted branches of an ancient tree, stood a weathered bench, its paint chipped and faded. It was a place he'd never seen before, yet it felt familiar, as if it had always been there, waiting for someone to discover it. As he approached, he felt a chill in the air, a whisper of the past surrounding him. He sat down, pondering the weight of his family's legacy, the pressures of expectations, and his desire to break free from the shadows of loss. Meanwhile, Margaret, searching for her brother, felt an inexplicable pull towards the garden. The sun had set and darkness loomed over the manor, but she pushed forward, feeling an urgency she couldn't quite explain. As she reached the garden, a flickering light caught her attention. Her heart raced as she hurried toward it, desperate to find Thomas and ensure he was safe. The air grew colder, and the darkness deepened, wrapping around her like a shroud. When she finally found him, sitting on the bench, a sense of relief washed over her, but it was quickly replaced by a wave of confusion. "What are you doing out here, Thomas?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. He looked up at her, his expression a mix of wonder and contemplation. "I don't know, Margaret. I felt drawn to this place." They sat together in silence, the weight of their shared grief palpable in the air. The garden, once a haven of growth, now mirrored their struggles, both beautiful and broken. As the moon rose higher in the sky, casting a silver glow over the manor, they began to talk, sharing their fears and hopes for the future. It was a tentative beginning, a flicker of understanding that had eluded them for too long. Days passed, and Margaret and Thomas found themselves returning to the bench, seeking solace in each other's company. They began to formulate a plan, a way to reclaim their family's legacy, not through extravagant parties or displays of wealth, but through simple acts of kindness and community engagement. They envisioned revitalizing the garden, inviting the town to join them in transforming it into a place of beauty and joy. Slowly, they began to reach out to their neighbors, inviting them to the manor for small gatherings. As they opened their doors, the shadows that had long lingered began to dissipate. Laughter returned to the halls, and the air filled with a sense of warmth and connection. Charles, witnessing the transformation, felt the stirrings of hope awaken within him. He began to emerge from his grief, participating in the gatherings, rediscovering the joy that Eleanor had always cherished. The Hawthorne family, once fractured, began to heal as they embraced their community.
They learned that legacy was not just about wealth and grandeur, but about the bonds formed through love, resilience, and shared struggles. In reclaiming their home, they also reclaimed each other, weaving a new narrative that honored the past while looking forward to a brighter future. As the seasons changed and the garden flourished, the haunting memories of loss began to fade, replaced by the vibrant life that pulsed within the walls of Hawthorne Manor. Through their journey, the family discovered that every ending could lead to a new beginning, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope could blossom once again.